Redditors assemble. r/AskReddit. Teachers of Reddit. What was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? She had to take her sister to school and drive her mum to rehab. She was always late to class because her mum just wanted to sleep in. Problem was, if the mum was late or did not go, she would have violated her probation and gone to prison. I never marked her late. If she missed anything important, she could come in at lunch or after school to make it up. Told me he got pulled over by the cops for wobbly driving on his bike and they thought he was drunk. Turned out he was just dodging all the slugs on the street. Good man. Watching out for the sluggies. They like to traverse the walkway in front of my house at night, so I always have to shine a flashlight so I don't step on them. I had a 6-year-old turn up late to her lesson and blurt out, "Sorry I was late. I had to color in a bunny." Seems fair. Can't blame her. Coloring the bunny is an important job after all. Sounds like she has her priorities in order. In my hometown, if you walked into anywhere late and said the phrase "sorry, grain train," you were never challenged. It was extremely common for 50+ carriage trains to run through the middle of town. Where I am, we have a similar problem with farmers transporting huge loads on the tiny 1.5 lane roads round here. In their defense, they will pull in when a tailback forms and let people pass, but quite often we're talking a tractor with 2 trailers loaded 2 cars wide with hay or whatever it is. Those kinds of large laybys are few and far between. We have the same thing in my hometown, except it's the bridge was up. That bridge is notorious for not following a schedule and always being up when you're in a hurry. MTV paid me $50 to fill my backpack with cement and carry it around for the day. I accepted that excuse. Student later regretted it, as a replacement backpack and college textbooks far exceeded $50. But he got his moment of fame and I didn't penalize him for his tardy. Gotta live a little. What kind of idiot doesn't take his books out first? It was part of the requirement, as he explained it. Probably sounded exciting at the time. "Hey you, guy on the street. Let's fill your backpack right now." It included his notebooks and everything. Goddamn, that's evil. My best friend and I used to roller skate to school, and one day we both forgot to put our shoes in our backpacks. So we skated to the vice principal's office and got to skip first period to go home for shoes. We stopped at Taco Bell on the way back for breakfast, because we figured we were already excused. I had a teacher in high school that would tell us if we're gonna be late to pick up coffee, because 2 minutes late is the same as 15. That's what my first period teacher says now, lol. Doesn't matter whether you come in 2 minutes late or an hour late, it's counted the same. That's the way my job works. You have a points system, and if you punch in late you get 3 points, but if you're more than 4 hours late you get 6. So if people are running late, they take half days and punch in before the 4 hours. It's an awful system. UK. A student couldn't submit an assignment on time as the Wi-Fi was down on the megabus. Standard, to be honest. Wait, there's Wi-Fi on megabus? Conceptually, yes. We had an exam in my class and the teacher got a message from a student saying that he was going to be late because his car had a flat tire. The student was known to party. The teacher didn't think it could be true, so as a joke the teacher asked him to bring the tire back. He brought the flat tire back in the middle of the exam. Needless to say, the professor didn't expect that. That student had been partying. Drives to school, takes off tire, punctures it, and Bob's your Auntie Mary. Don't even need to puncture it. Just deflate it a bunch and then after the exam just fill it back up. Frick, but I already punctured it. A kid missed my first period class one morning, but was in school later that day. When I asked him why he hadn't arrived in time for my course, he said his cow was birthing its calf that morning, so he'd picked being in the barn over English. Made sense to me. His essays weren't going to win any ribbons at the county fair, but his calf could. I was late to AP Bio because my goats had kids that morning. I feel like that should have counted for my grade. This happens all the time at my school. His essays weren't going to win any ribbons at the county fair, but his calf could. This sentence warmed my heart. Thank you. A kid's apartment burned down overnight. He was a little late, but still came. Well, being at school would be better than on the streets. On the streets, one of my co-workers lost his job because he was late after his house burned down. Our work had a 3-strike policy on being late, and that was his 3rd time being late. One time a group of kids went through some neighborhoods slashing tires. It ended up in the news because some companies didn't care and were penalizing and even terminating people because they couldn't get to work or were late. I had a teacher who showed up about halfway through the class. Apparently her car had slid. Intense snowstorm the night before, and she had walked the last mile or so. That's dedication to students. On the topic of dedication to students, my networking instructor once tripped on a wire, bounced their head off the floor, concussion, then finished the lesson. Was gone for about a week or 2, 3 or 6 classes, then came back because she was worried we were gonna fall behind with a substitute teacher. When I was in college, my psych professor told us that the only excuse for being late was a funeral procession. Any other reason, you wouldn't be allowed to come in. A few weeks into the semester, I was headed from one building to another, which involved crossing the main road. Lo and behold, there was one very long funeral procession going by. I got a short video of it as proof, then stood on the sidewalk to let it go by. Unfortunately, the procession made me 5 minutes late to class. I knocked on the door, and the professor came over to start to tell me off. I showed her the video. Well, I'll be damned. Come on in. And then you could just save that video for any future professors like that. Use the video where the sun is shining bright while outside it is pouring like hell for extra credibility. God clearly smiled upon this procession. You should not only let me in, but give me an A for the entire class. One of my organ students told me he was late arriving for his lesson because he got stuck behind a lengthy funeral procession en route to the cemetery. I knew he was telling the truth because I had played the organ for the service earlier that morning and the church was packed. After that first paragraph, I had some really wild ideas about what you would be teaching to your organ students. Oh, thank goodness I wasn't the only one. I apologize that I'm writing this on mobile, so there might be errors. I'm an English professor, and one year a pretty good student showed up without one of his 2 major term papers. He explained that his safe had been stolen by a contractor who was working on their house. His laptop was in the safe, and that's where his paper was. I genuinely believe him, because he'd been a really good student. Then over the next few weeks, he started to show up to class looking very tired. He said that he was on a hunt for the person who stole his safe, and he was spending late nights with his cousin driving around looking for the guy, because they knew his van. Now, the student and his cousin were both recently back from tours in Iraq and had seen combat experience. They wanted to find the guy to beat the shit out of him and get the safe back, because his wife's wedding ring was in the safe as well as a bunch of cash. He rewrote the paper and turned it in, apologetic that it wasn't up to his usual quality, but he still kept coming to class looking like he hadn't slept. After a little while he came very happy to my office hours, and he reported that he found the guy after a long search that involved breaking into a meth den, shaking people down with baseball bats and even bribing some prostitutes. He said that they found the guy's van at a Taco Bell after getting a tip from a prostitute, and they cornered him and waited for the police to come. I read in the news that he had in fact done a citizen's arrest and stopped the guy at a Taco Bell, and that they ended up calling in the Secret Service, because he used the cash that he stole from the safe to buy a bunch of counterfeiting equipment. Secret Service apparently investigates counterfeiting, so the whole investigation happened because this guy who I dubbed the White Shaft tracked the scumbag down through the bad side of town late at night to get a wedding ring, some cash, and his research paper back. It all turned out to be true. He got the ring and the laptop back. I gladly accepted his original paper, and it got a much higher grade than the rewrite. Holy frick. There's like a whole season of a new show there, right? No shit, I'd watch the Netflix original of this. Not me, but in my class. This was in college. Student turned in work late after not showing up for 2 classes. 2 classes amounted to a full week, so it was noticeable. Professor looked at him and said, "I hope somebody died for you to be this late. Does my dad count?" Honestly, I've always heard you can hear a pin drop and never really thought anything of it, but yeah, you could hear a freaking pin cut through the air after that. A way too friendly taxi driver asked me and my sister why we were so quiet. Did anyone die? He, yes, we're just on the way back from our dad's funeral. He didn't say a word for the rest of the drive. I was leaving the hospital, having picked up my mom's stuff after she died. The super friendly cab driver asked who I knew there, and I said my mom. He asked me how she was doing, and I told him she was leaving today, for the first time in over a year. Technically true. He was so happy for me. I could have said that she had died. I wasn't in denial or anything. It was her time. Had been for a while. But I knew that if I said that, his whole demeanor would change, and honestly I liked the genuine happiness. I got to have the last light and fun conversation I would have for weeks. After you lose a parent, everyone walks on eggshells. He tried to set me up with his son, promising he was a good man. I'll never forget that ride. This is beautiful. This happened to me as a pupil. A very quiet, unassuming kid in our class came into German with about 5 minutes of the class left. We went to a Catholic school and the teachers were all quite strict and intimidating. Classes were usually silent, especially in junior school. When this boy came into class at the end of the lesson that day, the door flew inwards with such force that the teacher gave an audible gasp. It had been raining heavily outside. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His blazer was dripping and sodden. He had mud caked into his trousers up to his knees, and he was breathing heavily. The teacher exclaimed, "Brendan, what happened?" We all stared up at him in shocked silence. This quiet, unassuming little boy let out a big sigh and just said, "I took a shortcut," and went straight to his seat. That line became iconic in our school for years afterwards. I love this story. The kid came in badass. Brendan the Badass has such a nice ring to it. Better than Bran the Broken. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button and leave a comment which story you liked the most. Subscribe and hit the bell notification for updates on our latest videos. And don't forget to check the links in the description box for more awesome content.